Thanks. Well, welcome everyone. We're introducing ourselves in the chat. Thanks for being here this afternoon. It is spring officially, I think, is it today? I always think the 21st, but it might actually be tomorrow, but you know what? Soon enough. So happy spring. And yeah, as you're joining, you want to introduce yourself, just your name and your organization in the chat. So I'm Katie Blake. If I haven't met you, your loyal partnership coordinator here at H2H. And full-time, I work at Highstead as a conservationist, which is the host partner to H2H. And so we have a full program today. So I'm jumping in, and our theme for today is water. And so I am going to walk you through our agenda. We're going to have a quick survey to kind of get our wheels turning for a great program speaker from Maine, as well as some folks doing really cool work around water and partnerships in H2H, and end with a discussion about things that we can do together or do more of together, with a final poll and discussion. So we'll have a lot of fun little sniblets and engaging parts for you in our virtual program. So get to our next slide here. Oops. So we're going to just do a few updates right now around partnership updates, some working group updates, and a few other things. And then we're going to welcome our guest speaker, Karen Young, who's a partnership director at an RCP in Maine called Sebago Clean Waters. And then we have a few H2H partner presenters talking to us about some of the work they're doing around water and partnership building in the region. And we're going to end with having thought about what we've heard and what we've been thinking about just in general in our work, things we might do together or do more of together as a partnership related to water. And I put a teaser here, but I have a save the date and it'll go out in the listserv, but our in-person partnership meeting has been scheduled for June 27th. So I'll have you hold that date, hopefully. And we're going to be getting together more in person now that we're kind of moving on from COVID land. So first we're going to do a cool poll. So sort of as an icebreaker and again, to get those wheels turning, this new app, if you will. So not in the chat, but through Slido, it's called, and you can scan this QR or go to slido.com and put this number in and answer this question, which I'm going to activate in a second. So if you don't have this, once I activate it, you'll see the question. So bear with me here. So I'd love to hear. So here's the information again. Slido.com, 185-6425, or this QR. And I'm going to try to put that in the chat too. I don't think I can, and show you the poll. So hang on one second. So folks just joining, we're about to do a poll. I think it's going to show us again here. Oops. Too many windows to move around. Here we go. Here's our first question. What are your top concerns about water in the H2H region? And so everything, the information, if you just joined, is here. This QR code. We're just starting off with a quick icebreaker, kind of get the wheels going question for all of you to think about. Yeah, pesticides. Yep, thinking about water quality. Absolutely. Source water protection. Yep. Karen knows a thing or two about that. She's going to talk to us about that today. Seeing things about weather, our storms, how that impacts water, what that means for our infrastructure. Water quality, seeing a lot of that. A lot of good themes emerging. Water quality, habitat, drinking water. It's great. A few other folks to chime in here. I know it's hard to use a new app sometimes. Great. So what's cool about this app though is it's recording our responses, and I'm going to send around a summary in our notes and in the recording of this meeting as well. So thanks for participating. And again, we'll have some opportunity when we're listening to our speaker and a few partners from the H2H region working on water and resources that they might have to share. And as we think about later, opportunity to think about how we might continue to work together on some of these as a partnership. So thanks for participating. All right, so hang on to that number too, Slido, and this number, we'll show it again. This is how we're going to ask questions to Karen later, and then in our follow-up poll, but I'll toggle back. So I'm going to stop this for now. Actually, maybe I'll leave it open for a second. New technology. Okay. Thanks for bearing with me. All right, so that was our poll. We're going back to this screen. All right, we're going to have a few updates, and I know a couple of our working group leaders couldn't make it today. I cannot see everybody, but I know we might have an update around municipal engagement, capacity building, and one of the initiatives to come out of H2H a while back with the Green Corridor Initiative. And I don't know if those folks are on yet. I'm going to scroll here. So Dave Kavinge might have a municipal engagement update.
Yeah, not really an update, more as a solicitation, I think. What I'd like to do, the municipal engagement working group has been on and off for a couple of years now. It's really trying to kind of work in that space and how we better engage municipalities, planning boards, and other municipal boards in better understanding the environment and reducing impacts or just incorporating conservation and conservation values better into their land use planning efforts. So I'm really wanted to solicit additional members. If just send me an email or send Katie an email, and I'd like to kind of regroup, if you will, and see where we can go, if we can develop some type of strategy to move forward.
Great. Thanks, Dave. And Jocko, I don't know if you had anything, not to put you on the spot, around capacity building.
I'm not muted, am I? No.
No, you're good.
No, I don't have any major update. A little bit ditto on what Dave just said. We've been on and off. It's more about capacity of how we can help each other. I don't know if you want me to say this, Katie, but I will not be on the steering committee for another term. So there's some capacity that somebody can help fill in. Looking for somebody who energetic, and for me, not working in the industry really anymore, it's become a little bit difficult. But on that note as well, would look forward to a co-chair of the capacity committee and or someone to take that over, because someone will have their nose to the grindstone. Is that the right term? Anyway, so there's a quick update. What do we need? How do we help each other like we are doing today? How do we continue those efforts? So that's the simple update for today.
Thanks, Jocko. Yeah, and there's a program coming about that would bring some capacity to partners. So I'll mention that a little bit later. Okay. And from Aspetuck, anyone who, I don't know if David Brandt, he had said he might give an update on the Green Corridor Initiative. I don't see him here. We can come back to that. Pollinator Pathway was going to give an update too, but we should have coordinated because their meeting is happening right now as well. So spring is bountiful with a lot of opportunities. Land protection couldn't make it today, and landowner engagement working group was once very active, and I think is where the Pollinator Pathway got a lot of traction before they became their own entity, but it has been pretty stagnant for a while. So with that, I did want to mention that there's, again, a lot of opportunities to get involved with H2H. As Jacko mentioned, we have a number of openings on our steering committee. So opportunities to get involved there. And I know there's several steering committee members on the call today. If they want to just say 20 seconds, 30 seconds of something that why you're involved, would be great to inspire others, but looking for that anyone who's interested in getting involved in more leadership of the network. Rod or John, yeah.
I'll kick it off. I'm a planner. I like to talk. So, the reason I got involved was really to meet all of you. We don't really work a lot in conservation here in the county planning department. I work for Westchester County Planning, but we do peripherally. We used to have more active conservation programs, and we're trying to build those back up. We do work closely with our colleagues in the Parks Department and the Conservation Division, and that's exciting. But I really wanted to kind of look as a regional planning agency at some of these issues at a regional scale. So getting to meet all of you, work on really important issues that are really going to dictate whether we survive through some of the broader issues that we're dealing with as a region, including not just the climate change and the environmental issues, but all of the social issues that are wrapped up in that interface, and the importance that wildlands or natural areas play in our society. I think that's really my primary interest. And it's been exciting to date. I would encourage anybody that even has any kind of an interest to get as involved as you can. Do whatever you can and help us along. The strength is really there in the partnership and with what everybody shares. So with that, I will turn it over to anybody else.
I could say a couple words. I'm the executive director of Myanasura Gorge, and we are a watershed organization. And as you know, watersheds don't stop at the boundaries of the state or the town or whatever. And so it's important for us to be able to, especially when it comes to land protection, to be able to work across boundaries. And this is a really good opportunity that way because it puts us in front of everybody else in the region. So that's what I like best about it.
Thanks, Rod. Thanks, Dave. Lisa or Jess, I see you're on too, or John. We're just saying a couple things why you've got involved in H2H as a steering committee member.
I could say that it's been great to do some collaborations with different members. Oops, I've turned off my video. It looks like and we've been able to get some really terrific grants with this collaboration. So we've been delighted to be part of this, no doubt about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Yeah, and I'll second what Dave said from the county's perspective. I've worked for Westchester County Parks and the Conservation Division for a little over 4 years now. And my reasoning for moving to working for county parks is just the scale, increasing the scale and the impact. And so we have 18,000 acres. That's great. But then there are all the other acres and the lands that are interconnected among that. And so meeting all of you and just increasing that impact of our effort and our work has just been incredible. And one of the initiatives that you'll learn way more about in June at the June meeting at Hilltop Hanover Farm, but this initiative to really get its local 59 ecotypic plant material into all of the work and restoration work we're doing. And we had our second meeting just a couple weeks ago, and we've doubled in size of people who are interested in getting involved. And I just think it's a great catalyst, right? It's a great catalyst of these partnerships and these networks. So it's just exciting to be a part of.
Awesome. Thanks, Jess.
Yeah,
And
and
yep.
yeah, John, I guess I can talk. Am I live, Katie?
Yes, you are. Yep. Thanks, John.
Can you hear me? Oh, great. Okay. Yeah, I'm John Rhodes. I'm the chairman of our Conservation Council here in Mount Kisco, also on the board of Marsh Sanctuary. And the reason I got involved was I just realized that the synergy of being in contact with and working with people from all over the region, we can never get done everything we want to get done, and we can never really know everything we need to know. But by being part of this network, I've learned a tremendous amount. Everything from dealing with invasives to working with other governments. It's just really the networking has really increased my productivity tremendously and the productivity of our organization.
Well, thank you all. And again, if you are interested in more leadership or have free time, because we all have abundant free time, but are interested in getting more involved with H2H, please reach out to me, or if you know of someone who this might interest them, let me know as well. And I just want to turn back to working group initiative updates. I saw David join, David Brandt. So if you want to offer a quick update on Green Corridor. Oh, you're muted, David.
Hey, everybody. I'm David at Aspetuck Land Trust. Good to be here. Update on the Green Corridor Initiative, which was really born through our involvement in H2H as we learned how important it was to connect the landscape in a larger way. We raised $5.6 million in our Green Corridor Capital Campaign, which started in 2020 and finished up in 2023. Our effort was really about protecting open space and then engaging the homeowners in stewardship. The people that live in between our protected open spaces were part of the conservation equation in this Green Corridor concept that we developed. So since 2020, we protected 217 acres. We have 90 acres under contract and another 260 acres in our contract pipeline. That's 566 acres since 2020. We're pretty proud of that. The Green Corridor is really an idea to kind of elevate conservation in our community, and really helped us to kind of galvanize people, funders, save more land, and kind of build out this stewardship kind of concept of engaging homeowners who are landowners. And we learned that in H2H way back when we were learning about how to engage. We had a workshop about how to engage, small woodlot owners in kind of taking care of their properties in more sustainable ways. But we're in Fairfield County, so it's a different kind of landscape here. So the stewardship piece of our Green Corridor campaign has been very exciting. We're now moving into, after closing the capital campaign, moving into Vision 2030, which is about expanding the Green Corridor idea and concept to the new towns that we're working in and throughout Fairfield County, if possible. We acquired the Monroe Land Trust in 2021. We moved into Bridgeport in 2022. We're in the process of acquiring the Shelton Land Trust and are talking with a couple of other land trusts in Fairfield County. We are a regional land trust. And so we're interested in increasing, the pace and scale of land conservation. And we think that partnering with other land trusts, and in some cases in combining with other land trusts that are interested, we can get more conservation done. So we're in the process of coming up with our Vision 2030 strategic plan. We're going to get ready to launch another capital campaign to expand this work. And what I'm excited about actually is incorporating the wildlands, woodlands, farmlands, and communities vision for New England into our work and figuring out how we can kind of overlay that and inform our work through that new report, which I think is actually quite good. And what I love about it is it kind of builds farmlands and communities into this matrix, which I think is really important. So I did talk to Bill Labick, who is my touchstone here, about how to do a lot of this work. And we're going to partner with Heisted and this initiative, Wildlands and Woodlands, Farmlands and Communities, to kind of help us kind of be smarter about the work. So yeah, I guess that's kind of the update. I mean, you know, we're hungry to protect more land, and we want to keep doing it, and we want to keep accelerating it. And the other piece of my update is we will be working through the H2H Land Protection Working Group to create a Fairfield County subgroup so that we can start engaging other Fairfield County land trusts to talk about protecting land in Fairfield County, which is a big piece of H2H, right? So we're hoping to kind of accelerate that and start talking to folks about land that they want to protect and how we can connect the
Awesome.
land. So there you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, David. And on that note, I'll get to my next slide here. We went over that, interested in getting more involved. Another thing we're going to be talking about, I'm going to zip through a couple last updates before I turn it over to our speaker. Some connections mapping will likely also take place within the Land Protection Working Group, or it might become its own entity or a new working group, or just general interest of folks. So if, this is taking some of the strategic mapping we did in 2018, 2019, some of the work that we continued around urban conservation mapping, 2019 and 2020, where we piloted this in Norwalk, Connecticut, and talked with other partners who are interested in this type of application in cities that they work with. And conversations we started having in 2022, 2023 around what we saw as important features and themes that connect our region, right? We have a lot of natural resources. We also have a lot of development pressure. So a really mix. And then in our June community and connections forum that we had last summer, heard from partners that are doing this type of work, and we looked at some maps and began having some conversations about this. So I just want you to know, if you were involved in some of those conversations, this is something that really interests you. It's still simmering back there, and I'm going to work to bring it toward the forefront, but I'm looking for other interested folks who are really passionate about this type of topic. So if so, let me know, put your name in the chat, say yes, count me in if you're doing more conversations around mapping and specifically around connections between the different parts of our region. This is a little tentative, but we have this kind of fits in with capacity building, which is a tenet of H2H, and we had a whole working group around finding opportunities to build capacity of H2H partners. And this is kind of new, hot off the press. Maybe time and date might get adjusted, but this is group agreements info session. We've had discussions at the steering committee level that took it was 2021, 2022 is during COVID, things got a little fuzzy, but we, as a partnership, the steering committee, working groups, and input from partners put together a conservation strategy. And it's essentially 6 main objectives that help guide our work as a partnership to enhance this connection between people and nature in our region. And so one of those objectives focuses on creating a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive partnership programming, processes, and leadership. And this some really important foundational work before kind of diving into deeper work is something called group agreements, might also be called working agreements, or sometimes group norms. And so in talking with a trainer that trained myself and staff at Heisted, Jordy included, in leading Heisted through this process. And so we'll have an info session for folks that might be interested in leading this type of work at your own organization. So the feedback I got from the steering committee was, we'd love to learn how to do this, lead our own organization, our own land trust, nature center, wherever, through a process like this. So this would be an opportunity to learn more about what is a group agreement, how does it fit into the context of equity work and conservation for that matter, and into our work more specifically. So, and I can share a little bit about our process of what we went through at Highstead. So I'll send out more information about this, but I just wanted to put the seed out there for you to think about. And then finally, save the date. We will have an in-person all partners meeting this summer, June 27th. It'll be at Hilltop Hanover Farm, 3 to 6 p.m. And I'll send more information about that. Jess mentioned earlier, but they have a great setup there and system around propagating and planting ecotypic seeds. And so they'll have a presentation and a field trip, if you will, and we'll do some networking and connecting with one another in person. So I want to transition us to our speaker. We know that our partnership, by its very nature, is a watershed focused group. And our region sits on this boundary of 2 major watersheds in the Northeast. And we're bound by 2 major waterways, Hudson River and the Housatonic. So water's in our blood. And we have an abundance of water resources that support natural ecosystems, recreation, and provide drinking water to like over 9 million people. And so one of the mapping connections that I mentioned earlier, some of this connections mapping we're working on, is showcasing these drinking water resources in the region. It's in the works, so stay tuned. If you have knowledge in that area, I really want to talk to you. And today we have a very special speaker who's going to talk to us about the ways they're protecting and raising funds for the protection of drinking water in Maine. Karen Young, she's a partnership director for Sebago Clean Waters. So it's a regional conservation partnership in Maine. And I've gotten to know Karen and the work that they do because of the work that I do at Highstead in supporting a network of RCPs across New England. And it's my pleasure to introduce her today.
Thank you, Katie. It's great to be here. I'd be happy to share my screen.
Yep, you got it. Let me just stop share here. All right.
Thank you. Well, it is really nice to be here with all of you. Talking about water. That is something that we do a lot here at Sebago Clean Waters. So we are based in southern Maine, and I apologize that I don't have a locus map here to show you where in Maine, but we're watershed based, and we're working to protect the drinking water supply for Greater Portland. So if you know Maine, you probably know the city of Portland on the coast on Casco Bay, and we are working in the watershed for Sebago Lake that is sort of northwest of that. Here on the map, you can see this large lake, Sebago Lake. That is the drinking water supply for Greater Portland. So on the map, if you see all of this area that is sort of a gray-blue shade, which includes 9 different communities in the Greater Portland area, that's the drinking water supply service area for that region. So I just want to give you a little bit of context about Sebago Clean Waters and the watershed and our region. And then I'm going to really focus on fundraising and how we've sort of leveraged funding for our work to protect drinking water through business partnerships. So we are very fortunate. So the watershed for Sebago Lake is 84% forested. Currently, there are, in addition to high water quality, there's incredible biodiversity and recreational assets, as well as a local economy that relies, at least in part, on the watershed forests. So that watershed protects, the forests in that watershed protect Sebago Lake, which is a very rare in the United States drinking water supply. It's Maine's largest lake. It's top 1% for water quality, so 10.6 meter average Secchi depth. And it's one of only about 50 surface water drinking supplies in the country that does not need filtration before it's treated and supplied to customers. And we have about 100 years of water in storage currently in the lake, which is pretty incredible. I think folks out west would be envious to hear that. So, sorry, let's see here. I'm just trying to manage all of these different buttons. There we go. So, sounds like things are great. We've got this incredible water supply, great water quality, significant quantity. What's the challenge? Of course, you're all familiar with, you know, the continued growth in, you know, our urban areas, certainly suburban areas and beyond. So we are seeing a lot of growth from the greater Portland area spreading out into the watershed. I mentioned that the watershed is currently 84% forested, and those forests are the primary reason that our water supply is so good. That watershed needs to remain 76% forested in order to maintain that the waiver to filtration that we have on the water supply. So those forests are incredibly important. In fact, the U.S. Forest Service, starting in 2009 and then in 2014 and again in 2022, identified the Sebago watershed as one of the drinking water supply watersheds most at risk for development. So the alarm bells were ringing back in 2009. And to date, the last bullet on that last slide, we are actually up to 16% of the watershed conserved, which is great. So that's our challenge, is that, you know, the land is primarily privately owned, and there's a conversion that's happening continuously, and, you know, we need to maintain this forested land. The opportunity is that we're working with a water supply and a watershed that is relatively intact. The water supply is very clean. So we're not working to mitigate or restore, we're working to protect what we have, which is great. We also have in our local water utility, Portland Water District, an incredible partner. They have pledged up to 25% of the funding for eligible watershed conservation projects that meet their criteria. So they are a huge source of support for the conservation work that we are doing in the watershed. And Sebago Clean Waters' goal is really to try to match that Portland Water District funding to leverage public funding for the conservation work that we're doing. So back in 2017, 8 of our current 11 members came together to form our RCP. And you can see that we have everything ranging from 4 local land trusts to our water district to large organizations like the Nature Conservancy. And we are fortunate to have Highstead Foundation and others as partners as well. So we set a shared goal, again, back in 2017, of conserving 35,000 more acres in 15 years, so by 2032. And those additional acres would get us to 25% of the watershed conserved. That does not, in and of itself, protect the water supply. It doesn't get us to that 76% forested, but it was what we could see on the horizon as a reasonable goal. And it will get us, with complementary work, to a significantly higher level of protection. Another key goal that we set around by coming together as a collaborative was to leverage new funding. And so our commitment was that we would not seek funding that would compete with the partners within the collaborative. So only new funding was what we were really focused on bringing in. The last piece of context I want to provide for Sebago Clean Waters, I mentioned we're watershed based, and we are focused on primarily protecting that drinking water source in Sebago Lake. And we adopted a model that the Nature Conservancy developed called the Water Fund. And essentially what it is a theory that drinking water receiving communities, so that greater Portland area that relies on the drinking water, can be incentivized to invest in the upstream protection, the watershed protection of their water supply. So we end up with water flowing downstream and resources flowing upstream. So that's really kind of the foundation of sort of our strategy. In 2018, we had an economic study done of the watershed, and there were three really interesting key findings that came out of that. One is that 76% number. We need to stay 76% forested in the watershed. Another one was that every dollar invested in land conservation provides up to $8 in benefits in the form of water quality, air quality, recreation, habitat, and other ecosystem services. Additionally, if Portland Water District is required to build a filtration plant, it would cost in 2018 an estimated $150 million, and it would drive water rates up for consumers of all types. So flash forward, that's just some context. Flash forward today, I just want to sort of share where we've come over the last 6 years. We've conserved over 11,000 acres of land in the watershed towards that 35,000 acre goal. We've raised over $10 million. And I will note that the majority of that funding was through one $8 million RCPP federal funding award. We've engaged over 12 business partners, and we've been able to leverage other funding sources as well. So I'm going to sort of focus from here on the business partnerships that we have primarily, and time permitting, I'm happy to entertain other questions at the end of my talk. Before I dive into talking about business partnerships, I wanted to just sort of give you some perspective. So I put on the screen a sort of pie type chart of funds that we raised within the coalition staff, not including all of the funding that our partners have raised, over a 5-year period between 2018 and 2022. So that was a little over $9 million. The $8 million that we raised through RCPP is the majority of that funding. And you can see the business funding is only, during this time period, 2.7%. So it's very easy, I find, and exciting to get there's a lot of energy around business partnerships for good reason, and I'm going to talk about that more. But I just want to give you a reality check that for us, it started very small, and it is growing, and I hope it will continue to grow. But we started out with a really big vision that we were going to raise $15 million over a relatively short amount of time, and that the majority of that funding was going to come from businesses. And I think we have learned a lot in that time period. And businesses are a key part of the fundraising that we're doing, but it's not the majority, at least not right now. So I know tonight's theme is water. Clearly, you guys have incredible water resources in your region, and the fact that you're providing drinking water to 9 million people is pretty incredible. I don't think I mentioned that the Sebago Lake provides drinking water to 1 out of every 6 Mainers, but that's only 219,000 people, so not even in the millions. We have found that drinking water it really gets people's attention. Katie and I sort of coined this term, like the secret sauce. It really gets people excited. Everyone needs clean drinking water. Every living thing relies on it. Multiple polls through Trust for Public Land and the Nature Conservancy have repeatedly shown that bipartisan voters rank drinking water as one of their top, if not the top, environmental concern. And just last year, Portland Water District polled their customers in our region about their priorities, and protecting the water source was their number 2 priority over water rates, maintaining infrastructure and other things. So drinking water is really important. It's an attention getter. So now I'm going to sort of move into talking more specifically about our business engagement. After we had the economic study done in 2018, when we were looking at the potential increase of water rates if a filtration plant were to be needed, to be constructed, we thought, gosh, that an 84% increase in water rates would be pretty significant. So some of our businesses that use a lot of water, that might be a really key motivator as we go out to start engaging them. So that was our primary business case when we started talking to businesses. And what we found out pretty much right away is that for a variety of reasons, but I think primarily because water is really cheap. And even with an 84% increase in rates, it's still really cheap. Saving future water costs was not something that businesses got excited about. It was not a key motivator. We did find that a number of other things were really interesting to businesses. Number one, protecting water used in products. And we have a number of breweries who are key partners of ours. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. Other businesses were really interested in supporting the local communities where their employees and customers live and work, partly for employee retention, but also to give back to their local communities. We have at least one business partner who has sustainability goals, corporate sustainability goals that they're trying to meet, and they were seeking help meeting those goals. Obviously, there's visibility and positive PR involved with helping local causes. And then one of the things that we were really surprised by was that one of our business partners was really interested in being affiliated with a Maine outdoorsy brand. So we did not necessarily think of ourselves as a Maine outdoorsy brand, that would be a selling point, but that is something that was interesting to one of our partners. So our very first business partner was Allagash Brewing Company. They are, if not the largest, one of the largest breweries in Maine. And they started small. They had a Black Friday event after Thanksgiving to raise money for a local nonprofit, and they selected us. And I think they raised around $1,000. After, another year of sort of talking and partnering on small things like social media, they made a commitment of donating 10 cents per barrel of beer they brew. And since their production has been growing every year, that gift is now equivalent, at least last year, it was about $12,000, and it continues to grow. So that is an indefinite, at least for now, commitment that they've made to funding our work, which is great. And they've also provided some pretty incredible opportunities for visibility. So I'll just point out that in the photo, this is Rob Todd, who's the founder of Allagash Brewing. He's got one of our hats on. We've done a number of collaborative social media posts with them. We have a following of, 1,500 people. They have a following of tens of thousands of people on their social media. So when we do a collaborative post, we're getting that visibility of their, their followers. They've also hosted events for us. They've created content for us, going out with a drone camera, other things. They have a really cool blog. They featured us on their, sorry, not a blog, a podcast, and they featured us on their podcast for Drinking Water Week last year. So anyway, beyond the donations, the financial donations, there have been a lot of other benefits to partnering with Allagash and other businesses. And I'll just add, Allagash is a B Corp. If you don't know what a B Corp is, it's a benefit corporation. So essentially a business that is not does not have to be strictly beholden to their shareholders. They can give a certain amount of their profits back to their community. So, and then so once Allagash was on board, it's a pretty tight-knit community in Portland. And so other breweries started getting interested in talking with us, and potentially partnering with us. So another brewery, Bissell Brothers Brewing, has also been a great partner. It started really small. They produced these water bottles. You can see a photo in the picture that they were selling. Initially, they wanted to just sell the water bottles to give us visibility. And we asked, could we get a part of the proceeds? So we were getting $1 per bottle. And I think we, got a couple $100 out of that. They really liked the water bottles and they were popular. So the next run of water bottles, they started selling them with $5 per bottle coming to Sebago Clean Waters, which was great. Then they hosted several large events for us, which one of the events drew about 250 people who had to pay at the door to get in, and we got some of the proceeds. And as part of that, they produced a really nice video that I'm going to show next. And then I wanted to share that brand new as of January, they produced a new non-alcoholic hop water product called Bissell Bubbles. And you can see here the label on the screen. Our logo is actually on the label. They talk about our work, and this actually is inaccurate. This is an old label. It says $1 per 6-pack goes to Sebago Clean Waters, but actually 5% of sales of this product come to Sebago Clean Waters, which is great. And it's so new that I can't tell you yet what kind of profit that's going to turn for us, but it's a great partnership, and again, great visibility. So I'm going to just share this really quick video that they produced. They did everything. We took them out to some sites so that they knew where to film, and they took it from there.
When you pour that beer or open that can, do you think about the resources that go into making it? In addition to the many hands and minds behind Bissell Brothers, water is at the root of all we do. And thanks to Sebago Lake and its surrounding forests, our product is made with some of the cleanest drinking water in the country. But clean water is not a guarantee. Forests act as a natural filter for water flowing into the lake, and with increasing development, those forests are at risk. Loss of forested land means a decline in water quality, thus impacting drinking water, wildlife, recreation, our economy, and so much more. With the help of forward-thinking businesses and community members, Sebago Clean Waters can increase the pace of conservation in the Sebago Lake watershed. Here at Bissell Brothers, we have a responsibility to protect our natural resources. So join us in this critical effort, because our way of life and our beer depends on it.
Oops, great. Now I just got to figure out how to get out of here. There we go. Okay. So one other brewery I wanted to talk about quickly, Lone Pine Brewing.
We still see the video, just.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. Resume share.
There you go. Yep, you're good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Katie. So last brewery partner I wanted to touch on, Lone Pine Brewing. They took another tack. Each brewery has really approached partnering with us their own way. And their sort of concept was, we want to give 1% for the waters. So 1% of proceeds of their new craft seltzer line that they launched a little over a year ago goes to Sebago Clean Waters. And again, they've been really helpful with visibility through the press, through social media. And then just last winter, they launched they started branching out from beer into spirits, and they launched a new vodka product. And you can see the photo here. All of these products have our logo on them and talk about the importance of the water to the product, to the region, and the proceeds that will go to support our work. Let's see here. We go. So now I'm going to switch gears and just talk about a couple of other types of business partners that we've had. Woodard and Curran, which is an engineering, national, probably international engineering firm, is headquartered in Portland, Maine. They have been very generous. They have a Giving While Living grant program where their employees can nominate an organization. Their employees nominate, I think, 10 organizations and then vote on kind of the top one to receive funding. And so 3 years in a row, we've received $10,000 of unrestricted funding through this Giving While Living grant program to support our efforts. So that is all employee driven. I think, having a lot of visibility in the region helps with these kinds of things, because then you're on people's mind when they're voting on these types of things. Another type of partnership that we have, and this is brand new as of January, Grove Collaborative, which is they're sort of an online retailer of green home products and sort of personal care products, which actually are based in San Francisco, but they used to have another headquarters in Portland, Maine. Has what they call an environmental impact shop online, where people, as they're putting things in their cart, the 7th generation laundry detergent or whatever, they can also add something from the environmental impact shop, which is essentially a donation. So we are now in their environmental impact shop, and customers can choose to donate funding equivalent to protecting 50 square feet, 100 square feet, or 200 square feet of water purifying forest. So I'm not going to, in the interest of time, I'm not going to click on the link in this slide, but if you Google Grove Collaborative Sebago Clean Waters, you should come up with a page that shows what it looks like if you wanted to donate through Grove Collaborative. And then the last business partnership I wanted to touch on is with a marketing firm in Portland called the VIA Agency. We did not actually receive any money, any cash. We received in-kind support from them, and it was actually incredibly valuable. They have a pro bono, or they have an intern program where they bring in 10 interns every summer for the whole summer, and those 10 interns focus on one nonprofit to look into all of their marketing, develop materials for them, media, messaging suggestions, all kinds of things. So we were selected as the focus of the intern program in 2022. Those interns did everything from reviewing our website to make messaging suggestions. They developed a slide deck for reaching out to businesses, graphics. They made a storytelling video, all sorts of things. And they actually were featured in some photographs that we commissioned. And so they made great models too. Let me see if this is animated. They developed an animated logo for us too, which I was going to show you because it's kind of fun. Let's see if it'll play. No, I don't think we're going to do that. Anyway, this logo is animated, which is kind of fun. It's just a different way of engaging people, if you use it on social media or whatever, because it's animated, it really catches people's attention. And then this is a video they developed that I don't know if we have time for this right now. Yeah, this is a longer video, so I'm going to skip that. So I'm just going to summarize with some lessons learned about partnering with businesses. It is really true what people say, at least in our state, in the state of Maine, it's all about who you know. So all of these different relationships that I've been talking about have come as a result of relationships, and not necessarily the relationships you would think. So in the case of the VA agency, one of our partners volunteered with someone who was in leadership at the VA agency and just reached out and said, hey, I work with this cool group, would you give us some suggestions about marketing? That led to being selected for their pro bono intern program. Another partner had a cousin who worked at IDEX Foundation who was not in leadership at all, but helped us identify who we might reach out to within IDEX to talk about potentially partnering. You know, that introduction got us to who we needed to go to, and turned into ultimately a 3-year grant. So anyway, the relationships that you have are really important, even if it's not with a business leader or a business founder. They can really lead to starting conversations that can get you where you want to go. Another lesson that we learned, and this was pretty early on, one of our conservation partners said to us, we need to be working at the pace of business, not at the pace of conservation. So as so many of us know, conservation can take years. It's often a pretty slow pace of work. Businesses don't usually work at that pace. They want things done quickly, efficiently. And so we've had to get used to being very responsive as we're working with businesses. Many businesses want to get back to their communities, and they see it as a really important part of what they do. So they're looking for opportunities to partner with organizations like ours to do that, to get back to their community. So I wouldn't necessarily go in with the mindset that there isn't something that we have to offer them as well, because we absolutely do. We can offer them value, and whether it's through our brand or through, you know, the opportunity to get back to their community. Other lessons, as I mentioned, you know, temper expectations. Our partnerships have all started pretty small and they're growing, but they're still overall a relatively small source of funding for us. The larger the corporation or gift, the more reporting is likely to be required. And you know, that's certainly been true for us, even with our IDEX grant, which is $50,000 a year. There's quite a bit of reporting that we need to do, because that's part of it's feeding into their sustainability goals that they need to report out to others on. I recommend getting a written agreement in place if you're going to be sharing your logo or any other intellectual property with a business. And as part of our agreements, we request that we have review and approval on the sort of marketing and messaging that our business partners are using. We request that there be no modification to our logo. And I actually have a picture here of an initial proposal from our partner Lone Pine. They wanted to take our logo and use it to develop their 1% for the Waters program logo. And we said, no, we don't want any, we want our brand to stay and our logo to stay pure. We don't want to kind of mix with other logos. And then we also have really held our partners to truth in advertising. It's, you know, some of our brewery partners produce product outside of our watershed. And on those products, we don't want any labeling indicating that the water is coming from Sebago Lake. So we just want to hold them to that. Down at the bottom, if you have free legal advice, either paid or pro bono, it's incredibly helpful in reviewing agreements or contracts that may come up as you're talking with businesses. So for example, our Grove collaborative agreement, because Grove is a pretty large national business, that contract was very long, very detailed, and we definitely needed some help in reviewing it. Last slide on lessons learned. Businesses are seeking fresh content for their social media, for their marketing regularly, and they turn to us often for photos, for all kinds of things in helping to generate that content. Often that results in material that we can also use, which is great, but it's just something to be aware of, that it takes time to sort of help them to respond to those requests. In addition, they are often looking for opportunities to get their employees involved, whether that be volunteer opportunities, getting them out for a hike, you know, doing other kinds of things. And again, that takes staff time to figure out, well, if IDEX wants to get 25 employees out on their volunteer day, we got to figure out volunteer opportunities that's going to work for them. There's communication involved. So it does take some care and maintaining those relationships. And then last, I'll just finish with a couple of new potential funding sources that we're exploring. Through the process of certifying buildings as green under the LEED certification program, there was an opportunity for a business to donate to an organization and receive credit for helping to protect water, helping to protect wetlands, other things. So we're looking into that. Similarly with B Corp certification, Allagash, through their donation to us, gets credit towards their certification. We're looking at municipal funding, carbon projects, and finally, I won't go into this because it's so complicated, but state revolving loan fund opportunities for drinking water source protection. Katie, I'm going to stop there, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you so much. That's like totally awesome. I'm gonna put a link and the web address for Slido where we're doing questions. So you'll see that in the chat. And I'd love to open it up. I'm gonna start. Let's make sure this works. Just an easier way for you should be able to add a question. Let me know if you can. See them come in here. And if not, we can just do it in the chat, but or we're small enough, we can unmute ourselves. We don't have to get all fancy with that. You can just unmute and ask a question. Why don't we try that? Raise your hand. That helps us get in a queue. If you could use your little raise your Zoom hand. I know my wheels were turning for what we could do here. Brian.
That was a fabulous presentation. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So my question was, how did you get started? Like, do you make individual phone calls to companies, or do you speak to chambers of commerce to cast a broader net? How did you go about doing that?
Yeah, so it's been I wouldn't necessarily say we had a very specific strategy. We kind of tried a lot of different things. We are a chamber member. We're also a member of a kind of another business group called Maine Outdoor Brands in Maine. So through both of those, attending events, you know, that kind of thing, we've gotten to know some businesses. I think it's been really key to try to raise our visibility in the region, in the greater Portland region, because often I'm actually getting phone calls now from businesses. So having that visibility is really important. One of the things we did that was completely serendipitous was we invested some money in a digital marketing campaign. And it just so happened that we launched that in March of 2020. Right as COVID hit, we were going online with digital marketing, and that's right when everybody else their lives were going online. We just got lucky with that, but that really helped raise our visibility. And then, as I mentioned, through Allagash, our very first business partner, they did a lot to help raise our visibility as well. But so, you know, chamber events, again, personal connections. I don't think we've done any cold calls. We've always had some way to engage a business. So think about whose sister works for who, or whose friend, or, you know, use those connections.
And these connections came from within your partnership, like partners who are somehow involved and say, I know we're looking for X, and I know someone, or my sister's cousin's brother, or whatever. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. We actually, so one of the things we did early on was we got a list from Portland Water District of the largest of the businesses that were the largest water users in the region. And that was kind of like an initial list. Eventually we kind of got away from that and we included other businesses in the list like B Corps and others, but that was kind of a starting point for, well, who should we call, you know?
Mm.
Or who should we be asking who has connections there?
Not clever. Anybody else? Any other questions? Oh, Brian got another one. Awesome.
Sorry about that.
No, you're
So,
good.
so how do you scale up? You know, if you're whatever, I think it was 2.5% of your funding. How do you go about scaling up? And is there like a trade association that you can refer to find out? Because I'm sure many people here don't know how to go about doing this. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a great question. It's one that we're sort of grappling with because the scale of the funding that we're currently bringing in is very small compared to the scale of need for conservation. You know, I mentioned that a couple of our partnerships started really small and they're growing and growing. So there is kind of within each of those relationships the opportunity to scale. So with Bissell, you know, we started with the water bottles, $1 for water bottle, and now we're going to a percentage of a product that could, I mean, that could potentially be tens of thousands of dollars a year. We'll see. I think, you know, we also are trying to develop relationships with some of the larger corporations as well. So, you know, we kind of started small with breweries, local, kind of local businesses, and now we're trying to scale up to larger corporations. There are a lot of challenges with that, so there are kind of pros and cons. I mentioned that, you know, there's a lot more reporting typically involved with those relationships. So, but it's a great question. I don't, you know, I think we're still learning.
Great question. I know we're always thinking about scale within the RCP level.
Yeah, and I think I'll just underscore too that, you know, the funding is only one potential benefit of these partnerships.
Mhm.
And I want to give a shout out to Jordy, who I see here, who serves on our steering committee. Thank you, Jordy.
Yeah, good to see you, Karen, and really cool to see the work. Just talk a little bit. I mean, I think you guys do an excellent job with, you know, kind of marketing yourselves. And I think a lot of RCPs could learn from that. Could you talk about that just a little bit?
Sure, yeah. So, well, first of all, Katie, I don't know if this is something you're going to talk about, but I saw that there was an announcement for the Healthy Watersheds Consortium grants that came out recently. And that was the grant that got us started. It was the grant that allowed us to hire for my position, and it also allowed us to hire a marketing firm to develop our logo and our name and our brand. And then from there, we hired communication staff to start, you know, keep our social media fresh and other things. So, you know, the marketing's just really kind of been building from there. And again, a lot of the marketing now is through our business partners.
Mhm.
So.
See another hand, Victoria. Question.
Hi, yeah, thanks. So Karen, this was amazing. You're doing amazing work. I've been to Sebago Lake and it's such an incredible place. So it's amazing that you're working on doing such an amazing job at protecting it. So thank you first for that. And I just have a question, such interesting insights about partnering with businesses. And I'm wondering, have any of them asked for any kind of naming rights? In other words, like you always think about people saving land and they want to, you know, dedicate it or put it in someone's memory. And I'm just wondering if you've encountered that or what they've asked of you.
That's a great question. No, we have not run into that at all. In fact, there hasn't really been a lot that businesses have asked of us other than using our logo and doing sort of collaborative kind of outreach. I think the biggest thing that we've been asked is for to help generate opportunities to engage their employees through volunteer opportunities. And again, it seems like a small ask. It does take some staff time to make that work. But that's probably the biggest ask other than reporting for some of our partners. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, I know a number of groups in H2H have had a lot of luck, especially during COVID when everyone was looking to get outside and get their employees outside. Large outpouring of folks like, yes, I will pull invasive plants and engaging new partners and businesses and corporations in that way. So that's been really cool to see. So any other questions? You're doing awesome on time. These are great questions.
I have a question. Hi, I can't figure out how to raise my hand on Zoom. Sorry about that. But maybe I missed this. I had to step out for just a teeny bit, but how do you hold land as like a land trust and fee or the easements? And I noticed you have 3 staff and you've protected a lot of land. How do you deploy those people to protect this land?
David, it's such a good question. And you're making me realize that I kind of skipped over some of our story a little bit in the beginning. So we have 4 local land trust partners who are doing that work on the ground. So essentially, Sebago Clean Waters is not a standalone nonprofit. We are a collaborative of 11 organizations. I am actually an employee of one of our local land trust partners, as are my 2 other staff. And the role that we as staff play is really trying to bring the resources to bear on that work that's being done by our partners.
Great, thank you. That makes total sense. So like Maine Coast Heritage Trust would be one of those groups, probably.
Yeah, they are actually not one of our
Okay.
partners, just because of the region that we're working in. But
Okay.
so Loon Echo Land Trust, Western Foothills Land Trust, Mahoosic Land Trust, and Presumpscot Regional Land Trust are the local land trust partners. We also have the Nature Conservancy, which is a landholding organization, as one of our partners, but they are not actively doing conservation in the region right now.
Great, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Great question. Thank you for asking.
Well, thank you, Karen. Thanks for taking time out of your day and everything that you do to be here and to inspire us.
Absolutely. It was really nice to get a window into the work that you guys are doing. Amazing, thinking about the scale of what you're doing compared to what we're doing. So it's great. It's great to be in touch through the RCP network. So thank you all. Good luck. Feel free to reach out to me if you have questions after tonight. So thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Take care. Great. Well, we're going to keep it going with other inspiring stories of work that is happening actually right here in our backyard. We have a few partners, and I think there'll be some time if you didn't have a chance to fill out. I sent a quick survey, like, do you have a project or partnership you're working on related to water that you'd want to share about during the meeting? So I'm going to kick it over to Mike Toll at the Western Connecticut Council of Governments, who's going to share a few updates with us.
Great. Thanks, Katie. Hi, everyone. Mike Toll here, Deputy Director at WestCog. And I have a list of projects, and they go from descending order from most associated with water to least, but they all are associated with water in some way. And I won't go into a lot of detail on the last ones. But most actively, we're very active right now in stormwater mapping. Towns don't have data on where their stormwater systems go. So if there's pollutants, they have a hard time tracking where the pollutants come from, which is kind of the case with non-point pollution anyways. So we are making that data real for our towns, and we've been flying on this process. So we have data for most of our towns now, and we're working in New Fairfield, and in Norwalk. So Norwalk, we're going to start doing our first city. That's exciting. We plan on applying, next project, we plan on applying for the Long Island Sound Futures Fund project. We have a report we did called Riparian Protections Zoning, and we want to try to employ buffer zoning and other zoning practices that protects riparian corridors. So we're going to apply for a grant there to try to implement those zoning practices, and we think we might be able to work with H2H as a way to do education and outreach on that. So that is brewing. We have hired a new staff member at WestCog to actually kind of take on a lot of these water issues. Her name is Jacqueline Relic, and she's going to be working on a few projects. One of them is we have water quality testing recommended tester data that we're trying to share with people, so she's going to be standing that up. We're active on the Water Utility Coordination Committee, so we make sure we know who our water utilities are and that they're getting water for our region. Okay, now we're going to get into some of the less water quality. So there's some resilient stuff that we do with water. So we're making sure houses are out of the flood zone. We work with the FEMA grant program to get them funding to deal with repetitive loss flood properties. We are looking at dams. We're going to be taking an inventory of dams and trying to connect towns that have either failing dams that either need to be removed or they need to be repaired. We're going to line up potential contractors for them and look for grant funding to address those. And let's see. And then this one's kind of fun. So the Norwalk River Valley Trail, which gets people to enjoy a number of streams and rivers as they walk alongside them. We just got a massive grant to do all the engineering planning design for the entire 30-mile route. So the project was like going super slow because we're doing piece by piece. So now we're going to get the whole engineering and drawings done in one go with a huge grant we got. And then we got funding lined up at WestCog to start building those projects out. So people will be able to access more of that trail and enjoy more of their water resources. And then we're also going to get more involved with brownfield projects. So we're hoping that if we got blighted properties that might be polluting our groundwater, we could do some remediation projects with some brownfield grants. So we're getting more involved in that. That's a new program we're launching with that new staff member. So that's kind of a mad dash on our projects. Thanks, Katie.
That's great. I wish I could like send balloons across the screen to just like confetti. That was awesome. If there are any relevant resources, that maybe the first thing you mentioned about some of that mapping, throw the links and or follow up with me later. I'll throw it in the notes when I send this out. But thanks, Mike.
Sure thing.
Can I ask him a question before?
Sure.
Hey, Mike, Rod Christie from Hyannis River Gorge.
Yes.
When you did your stormwater mapping, how did you do that? How did you find out, where, are you using dyes or how are you trying to map it from source to where it comes out,
Yeah, no, it's not as complicated as like the dye. That would be a lot of manpower. Ultimately, what we're doing is we're just finding out where the pipes are. We know where all the outfalls are, and we know where all the inlets are, but we don't know the direction in which they play with each other. So we have mappers who go with flashlight, camera, and a GPS tool and say, okay, here's the pipe. It goes off in these directions. And they go and just collect that repeatedly. And then they go process it in the office afterwards. And we build the line network that way.
Great. Thanks.
Sure thing.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
Next up, Janelle Robbins from the Westchester Land Trust.
Hi, I do have a few slides
Great.
that I can share.
Yeah, should be able to.
Here we go. So I'm going to talk a little bit about WQIP grants in New York State. Let me see if this goes. Does everyone see it, by the way? Okay, perfect. So in New York, we have these water quality improvement project land acquisition for source water protection project grants. So the first thing is, that's a ton of words. They have project grants and they have program grants. So a project is usually a single acquisition. It might be multiple lots, but it's one transaction to acquire it. The program grants are for a patchwork or a constellation of acquisitions, and it can be both purchase and conservation easements. So we've only done the project grants where it's a single acquisition. It is a competitive funding program. And they're really looking, they have, the New York State DEC has a scoring rubric, and I think it's out of 115 points. So they're looking at projects that directly improve water quality or aquatic habitat, promote flood risk reductions, implement restoration, create enhanced flood resiliency and climate resiliency, and protect a drinking water source. And so we've really been focusing on the drinking water sources because that makes sense in a area that has tons of reservoirs that serve the New York City population. This is probably one of the biggest parts and hardest parts for us here in Westchester. There's a maximum award of $5 million. So we've definitely identified kind of the beautiful, I call it like the rainbows and unicorns parcels that we would love to protect, but the asking price is greater than $5 million. And it does require a 25% match. So municipalities, soil and water conservation districts, and nonprofits like land trusts are eligible. And we partner with mostly municipalities to get this work done because it benefits everyone. It's really important to get their support, first of all, because the municipality cannot object to the acquisition. And sometimes people are like, well, why would a municipality object to an acquisition? Well, it's taking tax dollars off the tax roll. And so there are some municipalities that would not support a big property, high value property coming off the tax rolls. What we've successfully done is partnered with the municipality so that they leverage their open source funding, and we flipped the property to them after we've acquired it from the private landowner. So it's an awesome way for a municipality to stretch their open space funding ×4, right? So if they have open space funding, it's being magnified through this grant. And we've taken on the responsibility of applying for the grants, which is no easy feat. They're very detailed. And it takes a lot of staff time, and then you have to sit around and wait to hear about it. And so that also means that you have to have a landowner that's willing to wait. So we usually enter into purchase option agreements. So they'll take it off the market while we wait to hear. So we submitted our application in July and we heard in March. So that's a long time for someone to sit on a property that they were trying to move. So it is a challenge to identify those properties that are significant enough to score high in the rubric. And you have a landowner that's willing to wait around to see if you get it, right? And then all the due diligence that comes with it, right? So there's appraisals. You have to have 2 appraisals. You have to pay the higher of the 2 appraised values. You have to do a phase 1 environmental site assessment. You have to do a survey that all these things have to meet the DEC requirements. And so we've done, I think our first one that we did was in 2018. We protected 5 acres in Yorktown. And it was originally, it was to acquire 25.6 acres, and the seller changed their mind before we got to contract. So DEC allowed us to pivot, and then we worked with T-Town to acquire a different 5-acre parcel, which was the last puzzle piece of a 2-decade-long patchwork that they were engaging in to protect all the land around Shadow Lake. So after we acquired it, we flipped it to T-Town, so that they can own and manage the entire area around Shadow Lake. It wouldn't have made sense for us to retain it. And for that project, it was $475,000. In 2020, we did another project that was 63 acres in Newcastle. So it was a $1.06 million grant to acquire property near Byram Lake. So it's part of a huge 700-acre forest block that includes 2 different TNC preserves and also the Byram Lake Reservoir watershed. So that's really the key. DEC does not care about the beautiful habitat and the, all the wildlife and the fauna. They care that it's protecting drinking water first and foremost. So after we acquired it, we flipped it to the town of Newcastle. They now own it and manage it, and we actually retained an easement on it. We don't typically retain easements on WQIP projects because the DEC requirements and deed restrictions are so strict that it kind of eliminates the need for a conservation easement. And right now we're working on a 13-acre project in Bedford. So we just got word earlier this month that we got a $1.35 million grant to acquire 13 acres of property that is completely undeveloped along the Muscoot Reservoir in Katona. So the Muscoot provides drinking water to more than 9 million people in New York City and Westchester County. And our plan is for the town of Bedford. So they provided the 25% match. And so they will own it. So after we acquire it, we'll do a second immediate closing to flip it to the town. And in this case, it will not be open for public recreation. So one of the requirements, they have very strict requirements about setbacks for trails and other recreation away from the drinking water source or any tributaries to the drinking water source. So some of these parcels are so beautiful that it's a little hard for us as a land trust to say that we're going to protect them and then not let anyone access them, right? So it's a challenge to find the projects, find the right landowners, and then, once you get that award, the clock starts ticking. And so I've been out with the appraisers. I'm going out with the firm to do the environmental assessment. The surveyor we executed the contract with right away. So the last 2 weeks has been just like executing contracts and getting people out on the land to do their professional services. So that's it. So are there any questions?
It's incredible. You're so busy. And thank you for being here with everything you have going on.
It's all right. So I can't see everyone.
Oh yeah, if you want to stop sharing, we can see if there's any questions. Anybody have any questions for Janelle?
Hi, Janelle. This is Dave from the Pound Ridge Land Conservancy. I may have missed this part, but what kind of mapping resource do you use to identify potential parcels?
So right now we're actually building a map layer that is just kind of the WQIP criteria. It's hard because every year they change their criteria. So we're basing it on, last year's criteria to see, we can make adjustments later. So we use our base map is our conservation priority parcels. So we already have a GIS algorithm that takes into consideration all of our, drinking water, farmland protection, all of those. And then this will be a layer that we can put on top that looks at that source water protection. Also, public drinking water supply wells can also be included. And so getting that data can be difficult. So we know about where they are, but we don't always know exactly where they are in a large parcel. And so you have to do some takeoffs to figure out, like, are you within 1,000 feet? Are you within 1 mile? Are you right? So you get different points based on how far away you are. So that's an ongoing process. We've kind of been doing it in the hunt and peck kind of style for a long time. And now we're trying to streamline it and start to get projects in the pipeline. So that when we get the new announcement and the new criteria, we can kind of act a little bit more quickly.
Great, thank you.
Well, thanks, Janelle. Really
Yeah, no
exciting
problem.
work. And next up we have Mary Ellen LeMay from the Aspetuck Land Trust. Share work they're doing.
Hi, everybody. I was not going to do slides, but it changed my mind at the last minute, and I did like 15 of them. So I don't think there's only two. There's only 2 slides. So I just wanted to share with you my screen and these projects that we're working on right now at the Aspetuck Land Trust that are a lot of fun. And can you see that? Buffers for Bridgeport? Okay. So this is a project that has been supported by the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. And basically, in a nutshell, the idea was for clean water, demonstrating to people that if you put buffers, if you live or work on adjacent to a waterway or in a wetland area, that buffers can be really beautiful. So we kind of went back into some of the work we had done. And for example, the picture there of the dry sunny hedgerows, we started our plant sales in 2020. We started putting together these designs for hedgerows. And for example, this one is a coastal hedgerow. And we thought this would maybe be a perfect start for a buffer. It's 30 feet long and about 10 feet wide. So we applied for the grant using that formula and thought, gosh, well, maybe we could do about 10 of those in certain areas of Bridgeport as demonstration sites. And then later in the year, offer something called like buffers in a bag, which New York State has done in the Catskill watershed area for farmers. So we would advertise and for people, and we would select perhaps homeowners or commercial properties that we would give a free buffer in a bag to. So right now where we are is we have hired a contractor, Growing Solutions, that is Brid Craddock, if some of you know her. She and I have been working on finding sites. As you can see from the map above, they are mostly coastal Bridgeport sites. They are either city sites or commercial, like restaurant sites like Bloodroot, or they are schools, Boys and Girls Club, or other conservation organizations like Ash Creek. And so right now they're being designed, and this is really exciting. We hope to begin to get order plans and get them in. The signage has already started. Our fabulous data and marketing manager, Shayna Meyer, has designed the signs for us, Buffers for Bridgeport. And so those will be placed at all of the sites, and we'll probably put a QR code that will go back to a site on our website where people can learn about what we're trying to do here. So it's really an exciting opportunity to just start really small, getting people to understand that in your own backyard you can have an impact if we all collectively begin to plant some of these buffers to capture the stormwater and clean the water. And if you notice, there's a brochure there, Riparian Buffers. That is a shout out to H2H. And Jordy, that is your program that you put together. That brochure is super helpful, and we're probably going to adapt it for some of the residents who get the free buffer in the bag. On a personal note, I have adapted this same booklet for Trumbull backyard buffers, because we have a bunch of lakes in Trumbull, and we distribute it by hand to everyone who lives around the lakes in Trumbull. So, so thank you to H2H for the work that you did on that brochure, because it helped to create a foundation for what we can do to teach people about the buffer systems. So that's the grant, that's the program we're doing right now. The other one that we're doing, I put in here, it's our Miyawaki Forest project. Notice similar signage. We have partnered with the Bridgeport Public Schools. Our contractor is Planet Wild, based in Westchester. And we have 7 school sites in the city of Bridgeport where we are planting Miyawaki forests, which are small, dense, high-powered forests that improve biodiversity and air quality and reduce air temperature and capture stormwater almost in like a supersized way. So we have earmarked 7 schools. We have put 3 forests in. It was such a fun experience in all of the schools. We focused mostly on 4th graders. The school systems in Bridgeport go from K through 9. So many of these 4th graders, when they graduate, these forests will be over their heads because they grow rapidly, and within 2 to 3 years, they are maintenance free. That's how fast they grow. So we're very excited to work with the kids. I go into the schools, and after the planting is done, and I work with the class that planted, and I teach them how to use iTree. And they each follow their own tree as it goes from a 1-year-old to a 5-year-old to a 20-year-old tree. And iTree is fabulous because it calculates how much stormwater it will capture over time. And kind of like these children, as the trees get bigger, they get better, they get stronger. The forests function at a higher level. Unlike gray infrastructure, which deteriorates over time, as we all know, green infrastructure just gets better. So this has just been a fabulous adventure for us at the Aspetuck Land Trust. We love doing it so much that we are in the process of applying for 2 more grants to allow us to continue doing these Miyawaki forests. We're applying for a deep urban forest equity grant, and then another NIFWIF grant, where we're going to do some heavy duty, large scale Miyawakis along the river systems. So it's just been a lot of fun. This concept of the Miyawaki forest really just, it came across my desk in 2021 on Ecological Landscape Alliance newsletter, and I saw that picture down below, and I thought, what in God's name is that? And it was such an interesting story, and I kind of stored that picture in my head. And when we began to do our work in Bridgeport, it just popped into my head that this would maybe be a perfect fit, because these are small forests that we can just drop in all these different areas in the city. Bridgeport has the lowest tree canopy in the entire state of Connecticut. These Miyawaki forests are the first ones to be planted in the state of Connecticut. So I wanted to kind of share that with you today. So much work has been done in Bridgeport over the past many decades, planning, collecting data. The Nature Conservancy, Trust for Public Land, the city of Bridgeport, they all have, watershed plans. The data's there, the recommendations have been made, the planning has been done. And so what we at Aspetuck want to do as a land trust is plant. Our specialty, our core competency is our forests, and nature-based practices are what we do best. And so our feeling is, as a land trust, we can bring our practices and our love of trees and forests into the city. We will be doing good things and having fun while we're doing it. So when somebody else does the planning, and we do the planting. So
Awesome.
Thanks for letting us share.
No, this is so inspiring. And I know folks hearing you talk about this effort, the Rye Nature Center, I know, are interested in doing these for us, if not already started. So really cool.
Thank you.
I am going to share, I know we're in the last few minutes of our time together. Thanks for hanging in there. I have one more poll, thinking about the work that these 3 partners just shared, and there's so much more going on. from Karen and the work they're doing in Maine around protecting source water. Just like us to consider this question. And so let me share this. Again, you can grab the QR code here or slido.com. And just, I wanted just to take a few minutes while we're kind of percolating on things we heard and things you might be thinking about of work we can do together as a partnership, more of together, even to protect water in our region. And earlier you shared, your concerns about our water in our region. So I'd love just a few moments to reflect on this. These are great responses. Certainly at the partnership level, as we heard from Karen talking about where can we look at the resources within our partnership, and within the partners in the partnership, but looking at larger grants, that what can we do together that we can't do by ourselves. I mean, that's why we all keep coming together, because there's something there, right? We've done so much already together. Yeah, education, I'm seeing a lot about restoration, us continuing to get together and to learn about each other's work, and learn from each other, what we do at that landscape. I saw that a couple of times, landscape level, restoration, scaling up stewardship. This is great. So I appreciate if you're like me, I'm gonna think, and articulate it like at 11 o'clock at night, but just reach out and let me know. I'll leave this active if you're still thinking about this. And but these are great, and I'll share these in our summary when I share out about this meeting and the listserv. And I did want to share this too. I meant to share this right after Karen's. This is probably not news to you, but our region, some of the breweries, someone had a really cool idea. I think it was Mel, Aspetuck Brewing. So just a really cool map of some of what Karen was talking about, and this is our region. And last fall, we had an event at Knott Hill, and I think that they've partnered with Pollinator Pathway, and there might be others who are doing that. So that this work is kind of already happening with some of the our partners out there. Awesome. And as we get ready to wind down, I did want to again throw these dates out there for you, just to, I know spring calendars, it's like suddenly it's spring, and I know our calendars are filling up, but we will be getting together in person, all partners meeting in June, and prior to that, I'm going to work with a trainer I've been talking with about this group agreements info session. This is again would be an info session, but the training or workshop would be to train you as partners who might want to do some type of equity work within your own organization, or you're a part of a committee at your organization, or just really curious and understanding what a process like this might even look like, even if it's not a topic of discussion yet at your organization. So I'll get more information via the listserv out about those as I have it. And we'll have June's not our only time to get together. It will be our only in-person all partner meeting this year. But last year, based on feedback and asks from partners to get together around networking, like some of that, just the fun, a casual fun time. So, to exchange with each other and see what we're up to. I managed to bring us together at, again, Nod Hill once, so we might try to do that a couple more times and host it in a couple of different spots, but more casual, not like a full-on partner meeting. And then in 2025, we'll look at, as we're kind of really getting out of COVID land and we're all gathering now, looking at getting more meetings on the calendar where we're meeting in person. Wintertime, it was really helpful to meet virtually when you never know what's going to happen out there weather-wise. And it can be convenient because we are an enormous region. And so traveling, if it's not super close to you, could be a deterrent. So balancing all of those things. But let me know if you have thoughts of, yes, more meetings, or this seems to be the right amount. Or anything, any feedback you have about engaging with the partnership or questions you might have. Again, if you're interested in getting more involved leadership wise, or have an idea for, gosh, I don't see this as like a working committee. I wonder if others are interested in this topic. Let me know, reach out. We can have a call or a Zoom or meet you for coffee. And if I have a last slide here, I do. I want to thank you. Thanks for being here, spending part of our afternoon, and I hope to see you all soon.